Camilla moved through the grand halls of the palace with quiet confidence. The walls were adorned with golden frames holding portraits of the late queen, each one staring down as if silently judging her. She paid them no mind. Her attention was fixed entirely on the small, secure room at the end of the hall. Inside that room lay the treasures she had long dreamed of owning. The jewels were rare and priceless, each one a part of the late queen's legacy. To Camilla, they represented more than beauty. They represented power, money, and a future she wanted to claim for herself. She stepped into the room, the heavy wooden doors closing behind her with a soft thud. The air inside smelled faintly of polished wood and old silk. Velvet cushions lined the long table in the center, and on each one rested a glittering piece of jewelry. Necklaces sparkled under the soft candlelight. Rings shone like captured stars, and bracelets shimmered with delicate elegance. Camilla's eyes sparkled as she ran her fingers over a diamond-studded necklace. She could imagine it around her neck, the envy of anyone who saw her. Camilla had worked hard to make this day happen. She had invited collectors and wealthy buyers from faraway lands. Letters had been sent in secret, assuring them that rare jewels from the late queen's private collection would be up for auction. She smiled, imagining the astonished faces of the bidders when they saw the collection. To them, this was an opportunity of a lifetime. To Camilla, it was the first step in a new life she believed she deserved. Outside the room, Marcus walked briskly along the palace corridors. His boots echoed lightly on the marble floors. Marcus had been the head royal guard for over a decade. Loyalty ran through his veins as surely as blood. He had served the late queen faithfully and had promised her that her treasures would remain protected. Over the years, he had seen many who sought to take advantage of the royal family, but none as cunning as Camilla. He had heard rumors of her plan to sell the jewels without permission, and he knew he could not ignore it. Marcus paused at the end of the corridor and listened. From the room ahead, he could hear soft footsteps, faint whispers, and the delicate clinking of gold. He took a deep breath. Confronting Camilla would not be simple. She was clever, persuasive, and willing to do whatever it took to achieve her goals. Yet Marcus felt no hesitation. The jewels were not just ornaments. They were part of the late queen's history. Letting them leave the palace was unthinkable. He tightened his grip on the handle of his sword, though he did not plan to use it. This confrontation would be about courage and words, not violence. Inside the room, Camilla arranged the jewels with meticulous care. She had spent hours ensuring that each piece was displayed perfectly, catching the light in ways that made them appear even more valuable. A golden crown with tiny diamonds glittered like a miniature constellation. Rings with sapphires deep as midnight skies were lined up neatly. Camilla glanced at a pair of emerald earrings and smiled. Soon she would have money beyond her dreams, and no one could stop her. Her thoughts were interrupted when the door creaked open slightly. Camilla looked up, expecting one of her invited buyers. Instead, she saw Marcus standing there, his posture straight and unwavering. His eyes, sharp and serious, fixed on her with an intensity that made her chest tighten. "Camilla," Marcus said, his voice steady and firm, "this auction cannot continue. These jewels belong to the late queen, and they must remain in the royal collection." Camilla blinked, surprised. Her smile faltered. She had expected interruptions, but never so direct and immediate. "Marcus," she said, trying to sound calm and composed, "you misunderstand. The jewels are mine now. I have every right to sell them as I wish." "No," Marcus replied, shaking his head. "They are not yours. They were entrusted to the royal family. Selling them is not permitted." "I cannot allow it." Camilla's eyes narrowed. She had dealt with objections before, but Marcus's tone carried a weight that surprised her. He was not simply a guard doing his duty. He carried the authority of someone who had devoted his life to protecting the queen's legacy. She studied him for a moment, searching for weakness. Finding none, she straightened her shoulders. "I will not be told what to do," she said, her voice firm. "I worked hard for this. I have planned this for months, and I will not let anyone stop me. These jewels will be sold, and I will decide the terms." Marcus's expression did not change. "This is not a matter of choice," he said quietly. "This is about respect and duty. The queen entrusted these treasures to the palace, not to individuals. If they leave these walls, the legacy will be lost." A silence fell between them. The jewels on the table seemed to gleam more brightly, as if aware of the tension in the room. Camilla's mind raced. She could call her buyers in and proceed with the auction anyway. She could try to intimidate Marcus or even bribe him, yet something in his gaze made her hesitate. He did not waver. He did not fear her. For a brief moment, Camilla's confidence faltered. She had never encountered someone who stood so firmly against her. She realized that Marcus was more than a guard. He was a living reminder of the Queen's values, a reminder that some things were greater than personal gain. Her smile returned, but it was colder now. "You think you can stop me with words?" she asked. "Do you know who I am? I have influence. I have connections. No guard can keep me from what I deserve." Marcus shook his head slowly. "This is not about influence or connections. It is about what is right. You may think you deserve these jewels, but they are not yours. I will protect them as I promised the Queen." Camilla felt a surge of anger. Her plans, her dreams seemed to hang in the balance. She stepped closer to Marcus, her eyes flashing. "You will regret this," she said, her voice low but sharp. "No one defies me without consequences." Marcus remained calm, unwavering. "I accept that risk. These jewels will not leave the palace while I am here. That is my duty." Camilla realized then that she needed a new strategy. Confrontation would not work. Marcus was too loyal, too committed, too unshakable. She would need cunning, manipulation, and patience. For now, she would have to retreat, plan, and wait for the right moment. The tension in the room was thick as Camilla slowly stepped back. She studied the jewels one last time, feeling both desire and frustration. Marcus watched her carefully, ensuring that she did not attempt any sudden move. He could see the ambition in her eyes, but he also saw a hint of fear. Perhaps she realized that not all treasures could be claimed by force. "I will return," Camilla said softly, almost to herself. "And next time, nothing will stop me." Marcus did not respond. He simply watched as she left the room, the doors closing with a decisive thud behind her. The jewels glimmered quietly, untouched, as if relieved that their guardian had prevailed. Marcus knew the battle was only beginning, but he felt a sense of pride. He had honored his promise to the Queen and protected her legacy. Outside, Camilla paused in the hallway. Her mind was already racing, planning her next move. She would find a way to claim the jewels, no matter the obstacles. But she also knew one thing. Marcus would be waiting, and he would not be easy to outsmart. The palace was silent, but the story of ambition, loyalty, and temptation had only just begun. After leaving the grand room of jewels, Camilla walked through the long palace corridors, her mind racing. Marcus's presence had stopped her in her tracks, but she refused to give up. She was determined, and she knew she had to find a clever way to succeed. The jewels were too valuable to abandon, and she believed that if she planned carefully, she could find a way to claim them without getting caught. Camilla reached her private chambers and closed the heavy door behind her. The room was small compared to the palace halls, but it was elegant and quiet. She had planned every detail of the auction here, away from the watchful eyes of the guards. Sitting at her desk, she spread out papers with names, dates, and strategies she had already prepared. Her mind shifted from frustration to calculation. She needed allies, a distraction, and a way to make Marcus leave the room without raising alarm. Meanwhile, Marcus returned to his post near the jewel room. He stood silently, listening to the faint sounds of the palace. He knew Camilla would not give up so easily. He had seen ambition before, and he knew it could make a person bold, reckless, and sometimes dangerous. He checked the doors and windows, making sure every entry point was secure. His loyalty to the late Queen demanded vigilance, and he would not allow the treasures to be taken under any circumstance. Back in her chambers, Camilla called her trusted assistant Lila. Lila was clever and loyal to Camilla, though she did not always understand the consequences of their actions. "We need a new plan," Camilla said, her voice firm. "Marcus is guarding the jewels, and he will not let anyone pass. We need a distraction, and we need to be careful. One mistake and everything is lost." Lila nodded. "I can create a small disturbance in the east wing. Perhaps that will draw him away for a few minutes." Camilla smiled slightly. "That will work, but we must be quick. When Marcus leaves, we will move in. The jewels must not see another day of waiting. Tonight they belong to us, and we will make it happen." Even as she spoke, Camilla felt a mix of excitement and tension. She knew the risk was high, but the reward was greater. The late Queen's jewels were famous, admired across the lands. Owning them would place Camilla among the most powerful people in the kingdom. She could imagine her life of wealth and influence, and it made her heart beat faster. As evening fell over the palace, the corridors filled with shadows. The candlelight flickered along the walls, casting patterns that seemed alive. Marcus continued his silent watch, alert and careful. Every sound echoed in the quiet halls, making him even more vigilant. He had faced many challenges before, but Camilla's ambition was unlike any he had seen. He knew she was clever, and he anticipated that she might try something unusual to gain access to the jewels. At the same time, Camilla and Lila moved to execute their plan. Lila slipped quietly to the east wing of the palace and began creating a small disturbance. A vase tipped over with a soft crash, and footsteps echoed as though someone had tripped. It was subtle, yet enough to draw attention. Marcus immediately reacted, leaving his post near the jewel room and rushing to investigate the noise. Camilla watched from a hidden doorway, her eyes narrowing as she saw Marcus move away. Her pulse quickened. This was her chance. She moved swiftly but quietly toward the room of jewels. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached the door. She pressed her ear against it, listening for any sounds. The corridor was empty. Marcus was still investigating the east wing. She took a deep breath and pushed the door open slowly. Inside, the jewels sparkled under the candlelight, more beautiful than she had remembered. Camilla felt a thrill of excitement and triumph. She stepped forward and ran her fingers over the golden crown. The diamonds reflected light like tiny suns, and she felt a surge of power. She carefully arranged a few necklaces and rings into a hidden satchel she had brought. Every piece she touched felt heavier than it appeared, as though the weight of history rested in her hands. Suddenly, a faint sound made her freeze. Marcus was returning faster than she had anticipated. Camilla's heart raced. She had to act quickly. She hid the satchel under her cloak and stepped back, trying to appear calm. Marcus entered the room, his eyes immediately scanning the area. He paused, noticing nothing out of place at first. "Camilla," he said calmly, his voice steady. "What are you doing here?" She turned, forcing a smile. "I was admiring the jewels. I wanted to see them closely. You know how much I admire the Queen's collection." Marcus did not lower his guard. "Admiration does not mean taking. You must leave immediately." Camilla's mind raced. She could not let him find the satchel. She needed an explanation that would satisfy him, without revealing her true actions. "Of course," she said, bowing slightly. "I did not intend to cause trouble. I will leave at once." Marcus watched her carefully, his eyes sharp. He suspected something was wrong, but he could not prove it yet. He motioned toward the door. "Go now. I will be watching closely. Any attempt to take the jewels will fail." Camilla nodded and left the room slowly, her heart still pounding. She returned to her chambers, her mind spinning with the events. She had managed to take a few pieces, but she knew Marcus would notice if the jewels disappeared. She needed a better plan, one that required patience, cunning, and perhaps even deception. That night, as the palace settled into silence, Camilla sat in her chambers thinking. She knew she could not act recklessly. Marcus was too vigilant, too loyal, and too clever. Any direct attempt to claim the jewels would be discovered immediately. She needed a strategy that involved careful observation, timing, and perhaps a few allies who could assist without raising suspicion. Meanwhile, Marcus patrolled the corridors, checking the doors and windows once again. He sensed something had changed. There was a tension in the air, a feeling that someone had been near the jewels. His instincts told him that Camilla had tried something, even if he could not yet see what. He tightened his grip on his lantern and walked slowly back to the jewel room, determined to remain alert. Camilla did not sleep that night. She studied maps of the palace, noting every entrance, exit, and hidden corridor. She considered different ways to create diversions, mislead Marcus, and move the jewels without being seen. Her mind was a whirlwind of possibilities, each one carefully weighed for risk and reward. She understood now that taking the jewels required not just courage, but patience and intelligence. By dawn, Camilla had developed a plan. She would wait for a day when Marcus was distracted. Perhaps during a scheduled inspection of the palace grounds, she would use that time to move the remaining jewels to a hidden location within the palace. It would require precision, timing, and absolute secrecy. One mistake could mean failure, but Camilla was determined. She had invested too much to stop now. Marcus, unaware of the specifics of her plan, continued his vigilance. He knew Camilla would not give up easily, but he also knew that his duty required focus, alertness, and unwavering dedication. The jewels were more than ornaments. They were symbols of the late queen's life, her wisdom, and her legacy. Losing them was not an option. As the morning sun began to filter through the palace windows, casting soft light on the marble floors, the stage was set for a silent battle of wit, courage, and ambition. Camilla's determination was stronger than ever, while Marcus's loyalty remained steadfast. The jewels, glittering and beautiful, awaited the outcome of the conflict. Neither ambition nor duty would back down easily. Camilla spent the morning in her private chambers, studying the maps of the palace with intense focus. Each line, each hidden passage, each forgotten door could be the key to her success. She had learned that patience was as valuable as courage, and she would need both if she wanted to reach the jewels without Marcus noticing. The palace was quiet. Servants moved silently along the corridors, and the air smelled faintly of polished wood and fresh flowers. Camilla knew she had to act carefully. Any misstep could alert Marcus, and the consequences would be severe. She traced her finger along the walls of the palace, imagining secret routes, hidden staircases, and narrow corridors that were no longer used. These paths, forgotten by most, could be her advantage. She recalled a story she had heard from an old caretaker about a hidden corridor behind the East Library. It had been sealed for decades, but the caretaker claimed it still existed. Camilla's heart raced. If she could find it, she could access the jewel room without passing through the main corridors Marcus guarded. The idea filled her with excitement. For the first time in days, she felt hope rather than frustration. Camilla gathered her courage and made her way to the East Library. The library was vast, filled with shelves of old books, leather-bound and dusty. The scent of aged paper filled the air. She moved carefully between the rows, listening for any sound of footsteps. At the far end, she found a wall that seemed slightly different from the others. The caretaker's story had mentioned a loose panel near the floor, hidden by a large tapestry. Camilla pulled the tapestry aside and examined the wall. Her fingers found a small groove. She pressed it, and to her delight, a section of the wall shifted slightly. It revealed a narrow corridor, dark and hidden. Camilla held her breath and stepped inside. The air was cool and musty, and the stone wall seemed older than the rest of the palace. This corridor could be her secret path to the jewel room, a path that Marcus would not expect. As she moved through the corridor, Camilla thought about her plan. She would need to time everything perfectly. Marcus was vigilant, but he followed routines. If she acted when he was away or distracted, she could slip into the jewel room unnoticed. The thought of finally reaching the treasures without confrontation made her heart beat faster. Meanwhile, Marcus continued his careful patrol. He had a feeling that Camilla was planning something, though he did not know exactly what. His experience told him that her ambition could lead to clever tricks. He decided to check the East Wing again, not because he suspected the corridor, but because he trusted his instincts. Something felt unusual, and Marcus knew that instinct often revealed what reason could not. Camilla reached the end of the hidden corridor and paused. She could see the door to the jewel room just ahead. It looked the same as it had always looked, but now, from this angle, it seemed vulnerable, almost as if it were inviting her inside. She glanced back down the corridor. The path was narrow and the shadows seemed alive, but she was determined. She would not turn back now. She moved toward the door quietly, her footsteps light against the cold stone floor. Her mind was focused on the jewels, the glittering treasures waiting inside.
She imagined the necklaces, rings, and bracelets, each one more beautiful than the last.
She thought about the power and influence she would gain, and it strengthened her resolve. As Camilla reached the door, she heard a faint sound behind her. She froze, listening carefully. The palace was usually quiet, but now she heard the faintest echo of footsteps. Her heart skipped a beat. Could Marcus have discovered the corridor? She held her breath and waited. The footsteps passed by, fading into the distance. It was only a servant carrying a tray of food. Camilla relaxed slightly. She had been cautious, but she realized that even the smallest sound could alert Marcus. Every step had to be careful, every movement deliberate. Camilla pushed the door open and entered the jewel room. The treasures sparkled under the soft light, more dazzling than she had remembered. She moved quickly to the table and carefully lifted the most valuable pieces. Her hands shook slightly, but she forced herself to stay calm. She placed the jewels into the satchel she had hidden under her cloak. Each piece was carefully arranged so that nothing would be damaged or lost. Suddenly, a shadow fell across the room. Camilla turned sharply. Marcus was standing at the entrance, his expression serious. "Camilla," he said, his voice steady. "I warned you. What are you doing here?" Camilla's heart raced, but she forced a calm expression. I was checking the jewels," she said. "I wanted to make sure they were safe. You know how much I care about the Queen's collection." Marcus's eyes narrowed. He had been suspicious from the beginning, and now his instincts told him something was wrong. "You had no reason to enter this room alone," he said. "Step away from the table." Camilla hesitated for a moment, then slowly moved back, keeping her satchel hidden beneath her cloak. "Of course," she said. "I did not intend any trouble. I just wanted to admire the beauty of the collection." Marcus remained silent for a moment, studying her carefully. He had seen her determination, her cleverness, and her willingness to take risks. He realized that Camilla would not give up easily. Yet he also knew that his duty was clear. The jewels must remain in the palace. Camilla noticed that Marcus was not moving forward. She understood that he suspected something, but he did not know for certain. This was her chance. She spoke in a calm voice, trying to manipulate the situation. "Marcus, you know how much the Queen trusted me. I only wish to honor her memory. I would never take anything without permission." Marcus's expression softened slightly, but he did not let his guard down. "Admiration is not the same as ownership. The jewels belong to the Queen's legacy. You must leave immediately and not attempt to remove anything." Camilla nodded slowly. She realized that words alone would not convince him. She had to act carefully without alerting him. She stepped back toward the hidden corridor, planning to retreat without raising suspicion. Marcus watched her every move, ensuring she did not make a sudden attempt to take the jewels. Once Camilla was safely back in the corridor, she paused to catch her breath. Her plan had worked, but barely. Marcus had seen her in the room, and he would be even more alert in the future. She knew that she could not attempt a direct theft again. She needed a more sophisticated strategy, one that would require cunning, patience, and timing. Marcus returned to the jewel room, carefully inspecting the table. Nothing appeared missing, but he could feel that something had changed. His instincts told him that Camilla had been there with intentions beyond admiration. He tightened his resolve. He would need to remain vigilant and perhaps anticipate her next move before it happened. Camilla returned to her chambers and spread the jewels she had managed to take earlier on her desk. Each piece gleamed in the morning light, a small victory that reminded her that her determination could yield results. Yet she also knew that the greatest challenges were ahead. Marcus was not an opponent who could be outsmarted easily. She would need to plan carefully, think ahead, and anticipate every move he could make. The palace remained quiet, but the tension between ambition and duty had never been higher. Camilla's determination and Marcus's vigilance were locked in an invisible struggle. Each one was preparing for the next step, knowing that the jewels were at the center of a silent, intense battle. The hidden corridor had given Camilla hope, but it had also reminded her that Marcus was not someone who could be underestimated. As the sun rose higher in the sky, the story of ambition, loyalty, and cunning continued to unfold within the walls of the palace. Camilla's plan was no longer just about desire or greed. It had become a careful test of skill, patience, and strategy. Marcus, as ever, stood ready to defend the legacy entrusted to him. The jewels waited silently, their beauty shining as a reminder of the challenge that lay ahead. Camilla spent the morning planning her next move. The hidden corridor had given her a small advantage, but she knew it would not be enough. Marcus's vigilance was stronger than she had anticipated. Every step she took would need to be precise, every action calculated. The stakes were higher than ever, and the jewels were closer than ever to slipping through her fingers. She reviewed the palace map once more, tracing each path, each passage, and each hidden exit. Her mind raced with possibilities. She realized that she could not rely solely on clever hiding places or secret corridors. She needed an ally, someone who could create a diversion and provide a distraction while she moved carefully. Camilla knew just the person. By mid-afternoon, she sent a discreet message to an old friend, a merchant named Tobias. Tobias was clever, quick, and trusted by few, but he owed Camilla a favor. She instructed him to arrive at the palace later in the evening, carrying rare goods and stories to entertain the staff. His presence would cause just enough excitement to draw attention away from the jewel room. While Camilla prepared, Marcus continued his patrols. He had noticed her movements from earlier and suspected that she was planning something more elaborate. He could feel the tension in the palace corridors, an almost invisible shift in the rhythm of footsteps and whispers. His instincts told him to remain vigilant. He moved quietly from room to room, checking doors and ensuring that nothing had been disturbed. As evening approached, Tobias arrived at the palace. He entered the main hall with a lively expression, carrying a small cart of colorful trinkets and rare items. Servants gathered around, curious and excited, while Tobias told stories of distant lands, mysterious markets, and incredible treasures. The sounds of laughter, curiosity, and excitement began to fill the palace corridors. Camilla watched from a distance, her plan moving forward. Marcus immediately noticed the unusual activity. He understood that distractions could be dangerous, especially with someone like Camilla in the palace. He moved quickly toward the hall where Tobias had entered, determined to ensure that no one used the chaos to gain access to the jewels. His eyes scanned the rooms carefully, checking for any signs of tampering. Camilla took a deep breath and slipped away from her hiding place. She moved through the corridors with quiet precision, following the path of the hidden corridor she had discovered. Her heart beat fast, but her focus was unwavering. Every step brought her closer to the jewel room, and every moment of delay increased the risk of being discovered. The hidden corridor led her to a side entrance near the jewel room. She paused, listening for any sounds of Marcus or other guards. The palace was alive with the noise of Tobias's arrival, but she knew that Marcus's instincts would keep him alert. She had to act quickly and quietly. Camilla entered the jewel room, her eyes immediately drawn to the sparkling treasures on the table. She moved swiftly to the satchel she had hidden earlier and began placing the remaining valuable pieces inside. Necklaces, bracelets, and rings were carefully arranged to avoid damage. Her hands were steady, but her mind raced. She knew that Marcus could enter the room at any moment. Suddenly, she heard a faint sound like a soft cough. Camilla froze and turned her head. A young servant boy, no more than 12 years old, had entered the room unnoticed. He looked at her with wide eyes, clutching a small lantern. "Who are you?" Camilla asked, trying to sound calm. The boy stammered, I was sent to check the candles in this room. I did not mean to disturb you." Camilla forced a smile. "It is all right. You should go back now. The candles can wait until morning." The boy nodded quickly and ran out of the room. Camilla exhaled, her heart pounding. She had not expected an unexpected visitor. Every obstacle increased the risk of her plan failing. She knew she had to work faster and be more careful. As she continued packing the jewels, Marcus's voice suddenly called from the corridor outside. "Camilla, I know you are here. Step away from the table immediately." Camilla's pulse raced. She had been discovered, but she did not panic. She reached for the hidden panel in the corner of the room, the small door she had used before. It led to a narrow passage that could provide a temporary escape. She moved toward it quickly, carefully keeping the satchel hidden beneath her cloak. Marcus entered the room, his expression firm. "Camilla, this is your final warning. Leave now and do not attempt to take the jewels." Camilla smiled, a calculated expression of calm. "Marcus, you know I would never harm the Queen's legacy. I was only checking the security, ensuring that everything was in place." Marcus did not lower his guard. "Your words do not match your actions. Step away from the table." Camilla slowly moved toward the hidden panel, her mind racing with possibilities. If she could escape through this passage, she might have time to hide the jewels elsewhere in the palace. She pressed her hand against the door, ready to slip inside when she heard another sound, someone approaching quickly from behind. It was Tobias. He had come to deliver the diversion and now realized the tension in the corridors. "Camilla, we must leave quickly," he whispered. "The guards are noticing something." Camilla nodded and slipped through the hidden passage with Tobias following closely. The narrow corridor twisted and turned, leading them to a forgotten section of the palace. Dusty cobwebs brushed their faces and the walls seemed older than the rest of the building. Camilla felt a thrill of excitement. For the first time, she felt that she might succeed. Meanwhile, Marcus had entered the hidden corridor, sensing that someone had passed through recently. His eyes scanned the shadows and he noticed the faint disturbance of dust on the floor. He realized that Camilla had used the passage. His heart tightened. He had suspected clever tricks, but now he had proof. Camilla and Tobias reached the end of the corridor and emerged into a small, unused room. She carefully placed the satchel with the jewels behind a stack of old furniture. hidden from view. For a moment, she allowed herself a small smile. The treasures were safe and she had gained a temporary advantage, but she knew this was only the beginning. Marcus would soon discover the signs of her intrusion. She needed more time, more clever strategies, and more patience. The jewels were not yet hers, but she had learned that careful planning and timing could tip the balance in her favor. Back in the main corridors, Marcus examined the hidden corridor and the disturbance in the dust. He realized that someone had passed through recently. His eyes narrowed as he thought of Camilla. She was clever, resourceful, and dangerous in her ambition. He knew that she would not stop until she achieved her goal. Camilla returned to her chambers as night fell, her mind alive with possibilities. She spread the jewels she had taken earlier on her desk and studied them carefully. Each piece was more beautiful than she had imagined, a reminder of what she sought and why she had risked so much. She also knew that Marcus's vigilance would grow stronger, and she would need to be more careful than ever. The palace settled into silence, but the tension between ambition and duty remained high. Camilla had gained a small victory, but Marcus was aware, alert, and prepared. The jewels glimmered quietly in the hidden room, a treasure waiting for the next move in this silent battle. As the night deepened, Camilla made a promise to herself. She would succeed, no matter the challenges, no matter the risks. Marcus might stand in her way, but her determination, intelligence, and courage would guide her. The jewels were her prize, and she would not rest until they were finally in her hands. The palace was quiet in the early morning light, but tension lingered like a shadow. Camilla sat in her chambers, her mind racing. The hidden corridor had given her a temporary advantage, but she knew Marcus would soon realize her movements. Every step she had taken brought her closer to the jewels, yet it also brought her closer to confrontation. Her heart beat steadily with determination. She had come too far to stop now. She studied the satchel of jewels she had hidden in the forgotten room. Each necklace, ring, and bracelet gleamed under the faint light of the early sun. The sight of them filled her with both excitement and caution. She knew that Marcus's vigilance would be stronger than ever today. If she wanted to succeed, she would need a clever plan, careful timing, and absolute courage. Camilla called Tobias to her side. "Today is the day," she whispered. "Marcus is expecting something, but we will use that against him. We will move the jewels to a new place where no one can find them." Tobias nodded, his eyes serious. "I understand. We must be fast and careful. Marcus is clever, and we cannot let him see a trace of what we do." The two of them made their way through the hidden corridors, silent as shadows. Camilla led the way, her heart pounding, her mind focused entirely on the jewels and the steps ahead. They moved quickly but carefully, avoiding the main corridors where Marcus might be patrolling. Every corner, every sound, every movement required attention. Meanwhile, Marcus had already noticed signs of intrusion in the jewel room. Dust on the floors had been disturbed, and small footprints indicated that someone had used the hidden corridor. His instincts told him it was Camilla. He understood her cleverness, her ambition, and her resourcefulness. Today he would be ready for anything she attempted. Camilla reached the hidden room where she had stored the satchel. She glanced around to make sure the corridor was clear. Tobias moved closer to help carry the jewels, but Camilla stopped him. "I will handle this. One mistake and everything is lost," she said. She carefully lifted the satchel, its weight heavier than it seemed, and held it close. She moved toward the exit of the hidden corridor, planning to reach a small storage room at the far end of the palace. If she could get there, she would have temporary control of the jewels, and Marcus would have to follow her to discover their location. As she reached the corridor leading to the storage room, she heard a familiar voice. "Camilla," Marcus said calmly, stepping from the shadows. His expression was firm yet measured. "I knew you would try something like this. Leave the jewels and step aside." Camilla froze for a moment, then turned to face him. "Marcus, you do not understand," she said, her voice steady. "I am only trying to protect the jewels from being forgotten. The Queen's legacy deserves more than just dust in a room. These jewels can inspire people, be admired and appreciated by the world." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Admiration does not give anyone the right to take them. These treasures belong to the palace and to the Queen's memory. You cannot claim them for yourself." Camilla stepped closer, her determination clear. "I do not intend to harm them. I only want to make sure they are seen, valued, and preserved. If you truly cared about the Queen, you would understand. Marcus shook his head. My duty is clear. I promise to protect them. Your intentions do not change the rules. You must leave now. Camilla took a deep breath. She had anticipated this moment. Every word, every move had been planned carefully. She pressed the satchel closer to her chest and moved toward the hidden passage leading to the outer storage room. Marcus followed, his steps silent but certain. He was not about to let her escape. The corridor twisted and turned, narrow and dark. Camilla led the way, her mind calculating the path and timing. She could hear Marcus behind her, his presence a steady force of authority and loyalty. Her pulse raced. Every second counted and every mistake could be costly. Finally, they reached the storage room. Camilla moved to place the satchel behind a stack of old crates. She believed she had a moment to hide the jewels, but Marcus reached out and touched her shoulder gently but firmly. Camilla, he said, his voice calm, yet unwavering. Stop, this is your last chance. Leave the jewels and come with me. There is still time to do the right thing. Camilla's heart pounded. She realized that Marcus had anticipated her moves, that his patience and vigilance had cornered her. Yet she did not surrender immediately. Her eyes met his and she spoke with determination, her words sharp and decisive. You do not understand, she said. I will not leave without the jewels. I worked too hard, planned too carefully. I deserve them. Marcus sighed, his expression firm but sorrowful. Deserve is not the same as right. These jewels are not yours. Your ambition blinds you to what is truly important. For a moment, Camilla hesitated. She could see the sincerity in Marcus's eyes, the loyalty he carried for the late queen. A part of her questioned herself, wondering if her actions were truly justified. But then she glanced at the jewels, their sparkle and brilliance pulling her back to her ambition. She shook her head and made a sudden move toward the satchel. Marcus reacted instantly, stepping forward and blocking her path. Camilla, this ends now, he said firmly. Tobias, sensing the confrontation, stayed close but did not intervene. He knew that Marcus was not someone to be underestimated. Camilla realized that her plan had reached a critical point. She could attempt to push past Marcus, but she also knew that the risk was enormous. Instead, she made a decision. She stopped moving, holding the satchel tightly. I cannot give up yet, she whispered. Not now. Not after everything I have done. Marcus looked at her with understanding but remained steadfast. Ambition is admirable, Camilla, but it cannot override loyalty and duty. These jewels belong to the queen, and I will ensure they remain protected. A long silence filled the room. Camilla realized that Marcus would not move, would not falter, and would not allow her to take the jewels. Her ambition and cleverness had brought her far, but loyalty, patience, and commitment were stronger. Finally, Camilla took a deep breath. She stepped back, placing the satchel carefully behind the crates. She looked at Marcus, her eyes filled with both frustration and respect. Perhaps I misjudged the strength of your loyalty, she said quietly. Marcus nodded. It is never too late to do the right thing. Your intentions may have been ambitious, but the jewels are not yours to claim. Camilla turned and walked toward the exit of the storage room. Her heart was heavy, but she felt a strange sense of relief. The confrontation had ended, and although she had not achieved her goal, she had learned a valuable lesson about patience, respect, and the strength of loyalty. As she left the palace corridors and returned to her chambers, Camilla reflected on her journey. She had been ambitious, clever, and determined, yet she had underestimated the power of duty and vigilance. Marcus had remained steadfast, protecting the queen's legacy with quiet strength and unwavering dedication. The jewels remained safely in the palace, their brilliance untouched by greed or ambition. Marcus returned to his post, satisfied that the treasures were secure and the legacy protected. He knew that Camilla's ambitions might return one day, but for now the queen's memory remained honored. Camilla sat in her chambers, the morning light falling softly through the windows. She realized that ambition alone was not enough to achieve everything she desired. There were limits, boundaries, and principles that could not be ignored. Her journey had taught her a lesson she would never forget. The palace was quiet once more. The jewels glittered silently, a symbol of history, loyalty, and the delicate balance between ambition and duty. Camilla understood that some victories were not meant to be claimed by force, and Marcus knew that vigilance and patience had preserved something far greater than gold. In the end, both ambition and loyalty had played their part, and the legacy of the late queen remained untarnished. The palace stood as a witness to courage, intelligence, and the unyielding commitment of those who protected what was most precious. Camilla's story was not over, but she had learned that sometimes the greatest lesson was knowing when to step back, reflect, and respect the strength of others. The jewels remained in their rightful place, and the palace continued to shine as a symbol of history, honor, and the lessons of ambition tempered by loyalty.